Happy weekend, and thanks for joining Scene Squad. I'm your host and political and cultural critic, Sharron, with two R's. And today I'm joined with my co host and historian and financial guru, Rosalie. And you're listening to Seen and Heard Podcast. Welcome to another episode of Seen and Heard Podcast, where everyone should be seen and heard, and everyone is getting seen and heard this weekend. Happy Friday! So we're opening up with a little chuckle here, and we're going to talk on the other side of this video. Here we go.
Mute myself before I do too much.
The problem is that in this scenario, to use your metaphor, the US has the bigger gun. And so China ends up having more to lose from this trade war, doesn't it? You know, it can't sustain the loss of 15% of its export market, i.e. what you export to the US.
Not at all. China is fully prepared to fight to the very end because the world is big enough that the United States is not the totality of the market in the world. So if the United States wants to go in that direction of completely shutting itself out of the China market, be my guest.
Yeah, and China will lose the US market, which, as I've said, is 15%.
We don't care. We don't care. China has been here for 5,000 years. Most of the time, there was no United States, and we survived. And if the United States wants to bully China, we will deal with the situation without the United States. And we expect to survive for another 5,000 years.
What he said. He don't care.
He said the adults are speaking. The adults are speaking.
The adults are speaking, and the thought that China rose to be a world leader, which I mean, you can't fault them on that. And seeing their contributions to their country and their citizens, the quality of life, the infrastructure, they rose all without firing a shot. No wars, no nothing.
There was a guy that I saw a TikTok of. I should have sent you the video. If I can find it somewhere, I'll send it back to you. But talked about the art of war is actually not going to war at all.
Basically.
Is learning how to defeat your opponent without having to go to war. That's the art of war. And I think it's very apropos today and this week. And I mean, everything that we've been talking about in the past few weeks, even on the podcast, off the podcast, this is very much, I said, so I think the first one we did where I was like, it seems like the United States is just asking China to take its seat at the table. And it's going to. It has no problem with the U.S. pulling out the chair so that they can take a seat. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's the choice that we've chosen to make. And they're really not at this point, which is, we'll see what the future holds on that.
I think the U.S. overplayed their hand. I think they really overplayed their hand. They didn't think it was going to.
Go ahead. Sorry, I said you. Go ahead.
They didn't think that it was, or they didn't know that it would play out like this because they're used to bullying, used to being the bullies,
and used to people bending to it. I think that they just don't realize that like everybody has changed, everybody has grown. It feels like that one toxic family member that just like won't go to therapy, and everybody else like went to therapy. They still got some toxic stuff to work on. There's still work to do, but like they, I said that like sometimes the like destroyer of relationships is when somebody like emotionally starts to outgrow the rest. It feels like that's what we've got going on here, is that like everybody else, while still struggling with their own challenges, of course, in this world and this day and age, have chosen to invest
and
in
then here I'm going to flip. That's it. And then like when people try to bring up there's really no comparisons, because yes, the government I'm not judging the people because of the government, because we're going through the same thing. I don't want anybody to judge me because of my government. The government is not especially this regime. This I have to be mindful of my words, but especially the Trump regime, that they're not speaking for me. But let me see here. Does this show up? Can you see that? I don't know what happened to the camera. Let's see. Did that show up?
It's not coming on yet. I think that your internet was glitching a teeny tiny bit.
Can you? Oh, I'm refreshing. Okay, there we go.
It's all good. Technology loves to get us at the best times. It's all good. Oh man, so that's crazy. It's no shock that this is how we wind up getting a response, though. It's genuinely no shock. The United States made it perfectly clear that it didn't want to be the main person at the table, and that's what we've got. That's what's going to happen.
Or anything yet, so I'm doing everything on my own. And sometimes when the weather is bad too, it like messes up with my. So I wanted to show this front page here. Trump waiting, and this is all projection. Everything he says is projection. How he was saying, "Oh, everybody's calling and begging to talk to me, and this and that." Trump is waiting for Xi to call. The Chinese see it differently. Of course they do. They're not playing. They're not playing with this toddler. They're playing the long game. Did it show up? Can you see it?
Right. It's one of those, like, I can't see it on my end. Not yet, no.
Can you see it? Oh, okay. So I don't know. Maybe it's just that article. Well, it was a Yahoo article, and
China's definitely
maybe it's just that article.
They have been for a really long time.
I'll post the link so you guys can see it for yourself.
Just a matter of working on themselves and waiting us out, because what we were doing and what we have been doing is very deeply unsustainable.
I'll post the link in the description that you guys can see it.
Ends. You cannot harm people to the extent, especially domestically and internationally, that we have done without there being
technical difficulties,
long-term consequences.
Apologies.
And we're just finally butting up against those, and a lot of folks don't want to acknowledge that.
Okay, it's the internet.
So that's where we will remain until we learn to put our people before party, put our people before money.
Okay, there we go.
And that's what we got to keep
It's the internet. Yay, can you see me? Yes, I'm back. Can you see me? Let me refresh. Hold on.
Bring my friend. Bring my friend back. Oh no. It didn't bring my friend back. And you even saw, like, China taking a step into the leadership role when it came to the way that the United States and Israel was handling what was going on with Palestinians too.
I'm back.
Hello.
Can you see me?
I can see you.
Okay. I heard you say, bring my friend back.
Good. I'm glad you heard me.
So I think it's just the internet, and it was that page. I don't know why that page wouldn't show up. That was weird.
Interesting.
But that's okay. I'll post the link in the description so you guys can see it.
Okay. That works. I did a little bit of like a side conversation about some stuff going on with China while we were on intermission. So you're welcome to look at those when we're done. It'll be fun.
I'm just so beside myself because, like, and I just saw before we came on, logged on, that now he's trying to stop anything from coming to China to be picked up at the U.S. Post Office Service. Now he's like stopping it from being delivered or something like that.
I feel like he issued an order like that like weeks ago. So
Okay.
maybe it's just now going into effect. I'm not 100% sure, but I do remember hearing something about us not, like, U.S. Postal Service will no longer be receiving Chinese packages or something like that, which I don't know. I was sitting there, I was like, there's no way that they're going to be able to, they're not going to be able to make that work. That specifically it's not going to work. It's going to backfire in such a spectacular way. Like, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on that before I start going on a rant.
They're trying to break as much as possible as fast as possible, because like this right here, this none of this makes sense. They're trying to break as much as possible, as fast as possible. We see you guys. I mean, we see what y'all are trying to do. Like this here. U.S. Naval Academy Library yanks Maya Angelou's memoir and keeps Mein Kampf.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so that goes into like what we were talking about yesterday with the museums and the libraries and them yanking the funding for nonprofits and things like that. So
Right.
This is just like another example to add to that.
Right. I think, and I said it while we were on like a little bit, while you were on your teeny tiny break. But it's, and it kind of goes into this part of it, is that China looked at where the United States was going. They've been around for a little while, as we saw in the video. They've been
5,000 years.
They've been around a little while, and so I think that deep down, they've been able to see how unsustainable it has been in the United States. I would argue, even going back as far as the 1940s, right? I would argue that they have seen where this was headed long before, and have been playing the long game a lot longer than the Republicans think they have, when it comes to what was about to happen with the United States and how this was going to have to play out. Now they've chose to play ball and grow and invest and get buy into U.S. industry in order to help itself get that catch up, because they knew the United States wasn't going to let anybody else have a seat at the table in any other way. And so they did what they had to do, again, without going to war. But I think deep down they knew that all they had to do was kind of wait out the foot stomping that we tried to do across the globe, and let justice the arc swing. You know what I mean? And that's at the end of the day. And they were like, look, we invest in our people, we keep our head down, we don't get into these stupid wars, we keep our manufacturing goals and we keep investing in that, and eventually this is going to burn out. Fascist regimes always burn out, and we've been heading in, if not fully embroiled in that, I would argue, before Trump even took his second term, was sworn in on the second term. I mean, it's been in the works. He is, who happened to be the chosen head of the goal, but they would have taken somebody else if somebody else had come along and maybe even done a better job. Maybe them choosing easily one of the worst people on earth. It will, it definitely played into China's hands. It definitely played out the way that everybody else anticipated. And I tell people, I'm like, it's no shock that we got here. It would explain how, the culmination of everybody's choices. I've gotten to the point where I'm like, if you didn't see this coming, you just weren't paying enough attention. You just weren't paying attention. Whether that's willfully or not.
And thanks to Fox News, because even now, like when the news of the stock market crash was going on, and some of the legacy media was talking about it, I saw people say that they checked on all the legacy media, and then they went to Fox, and Fox was talking about transgender mice. Like, no mention of anything that Trump did to crash this economy. They're talking about transgender mice.
Right. Which aren't what they are. They're transgenic, which are different than transgender. But we can get into the animal science of it all as
Right.
as I'm an animal scientist. But like, aside from all of that, yeah. They talked about something that didn't exist rather than the fact that the stock market was collapsing. Yeah.
Because of Trump. It's like, they don't want to, and the legacy name, MSNBC, CNN, they barely want to say anything bad about Trump. But Fox News is completely and utterly ignoring it all.
Oh, well, I mean,
And that's why we're in the state we're in, because of people that watch that channel.
yes, I will say that media and the folks, the big guys at the top, aren't the Koch brothers heavily involved in that, or is that Murdoch? Murdoch.
Oh yeah, Koch brothers, and who's the other one?
Yeah.
Koch brothers and the other billionaires.
Right. So this, I mean, the way that
the Murdochs are the ones that own Fox.
I was right. Okay, sweet. I'm like, there's so many awful billionaires out there. We gotta figure out
Rupert Murdoch. Rupert Murdoch.
Right.
He's another immigrant, another white immigrant that came over here like Elon Musk to destroy our democracy.
Mm. Right. And like we were talking about before, how it's not even that the British Empire ever collapsed. It just handed the baton off to the United States. Right. And so, again, it's no shock that we got here, considering we never tried to take a turn off this route. This route was going to come for us if we didn't choose to disembark. If we didn't choose to get off this train, there's only one way for it to go down these tracks. And we had so many people ringing that 5-alarm fire, like you were talking about earlier, for so long, that at this point, if you're still going to sit there and be in denial about what's going on around you, there are people who were like that the last time this type of large scale chicanery, we'll call it, was going on. At this point, if you want to fail an open notes test, you are going to get left behind by the world. You are going to get left behind. You're going to regret it. It will not age well. There is really no other way. I don't really try to get into too much discourse with people who want to pretend that it's not happening, because I don't debate delusion. I will discuss facts, and I can debate opinion, but I won't debate delusion.
Right. I really have no tolerance for that. Like, I get kind of annoyed with the narrative that these the legacy media continues to push about, we have to coddle them. We have to we don't. They've been doing that since 2015. Going to the diners and getting their perspective and not talking to anybody outside of these cult people. But this is when you were talking about the art of war earlier. This is what I was looking for. I saw that picture earlier. Yeah. I thought that was funny. That was funny.
Very apropos. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And he didn't even write that book, The Art of the Deal. He did not write it. Like, he has a ghostwriter write that book.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he was interviewed and stuff like that to help with some of the things. But yeah, I mean, I haven't read that.
But he says that he wrote it. I wrote The Art of the Deal.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
I'm reading The Art of War.
Right. It reminds me of the part of Dodgeball when he's like, are you reading the dictionary? Like, I'd like to break a mental sweat too. And he doesn't actually read. He was just trying to be impressive. That's how I feel about it. Kind of the upside down Bible. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that was his first reign of terror. He's holding up the Bible upside down. But and then again, he has all of the media because they helped prop him up. They helped normalize like all of this.
Well,
And then there is the news outside of the United States is not reporting on what's going on with this tariff war the same way the news here is.
right. Of course not. They're never reporting the same way. Like I remember growing up and having my parents tell me that I couldn't trust like Al Jazeera or
Mm-hmm.
like any foreign, they're like because they're you know either terrorists or they are
Mm-hmm.
or they're by
Sympathizers.
in America or whatever. And I'm like, oh, maybe they're just not America. That's actually what it is. It's they're
Right,
just
right.
America. It doesn't mean that they hate us. They're just not us. And so you don't like other people shining a quick little light under be like, what's going on over here? Like acting like we're the only ones on earth who know anything. It's very that super nationalist, like American exceptionalism. Blech.
I knew about the COVID pandemic like 2 years before they even started reporting on it here in the United States because I was watching the Korean, the Taiwan, Singapore, Japanese news every day. And then like the closer it got, so I'm watching their news every day. And I'm seeing what they're talking about. They're reporting on COVID and like how dire it was and everything. And I'm just like, and then I would cut on the American news that like nowhere in America was talking about it. And then like I said, for 2 years, I'm just thinking, and I'm just like, when every time I left the house, I'm looking around, I'm like, why are people like not concerned about this? Because I've never seen anything like this, like all of their footage and coverage. So then when it got to the UK, when the first COVID patient went to the UK, then America started talking about it, for obvious reasons.
Right.
And then they started talking about it. But I was like, I knew about COVID 2 years before they even reported it here in the United States because of the news that I watch outside of here.
Right. Right. And that's kind of where a lot of us are at this point. If we're not getting it from independent media within the US, a lot of folks are going to media outside of the US because they cannot trust the media here to just tell the truth anymore. And that's because these folks have made a concerted effort to degrade trust and integrity within the media. And then I think we did talk about this maybe yesterday where they degraded trust in the media. They degrade trust in higher learning institutions. They degrade trust in the legal system. And then
they shot themselves in the foot. They did it to themselves because they're protecting a rapist, a 34 times felon rapist in the White House. Plain and simple. They have bowed down and kissed the ring of a 34-time felon rapist.
And the reality is they've been bowing down and kissing the feet of war criminals the entire time. You know what I'm saying?
That too.
You know, and it's par for the course. It's finally culminated into a mask off, unignorable day and age. I mean, if you'd had iPhones and Twitter during the 1800s, you'd probably see similar tweets, frankly. You know what I'm saying? It would look very similar, minus the bots, essentially. But you know what I mean? It would feel very, very, so the 1850s and 60s, it would feel very similar.
Right.
And that's why I tell people these are not necessarily unprecedented times so much as like poorly made modern remakes of the American classics. Like this is just a really poorly made remake because the Mustache Man was inspired by what we did here. You know what I'm saying? Like all of the forms of fascism that we've probably seen around the world since the 1800s have been inspired by what we've done here to the indigenous people and to the Black community. And so if white people refuse to listen, we didn't get off this train in time for it to now affect all of us. It is a cancer that spreads. It never chooses to stop. And the cancer has finally spread to the lymph nodes, to the white blood cells, if you will. You know what I mean? And now we have to reckon with that. And that's, like you said, that's our responsibility. We need to.
That's going to be hard.
I agree.
Because this actually segues into our conversation about how to correct this, like we were talking about voting. The SAVE Act passed yesterday with, they're undercover where nobody's paying attention because of all the other nonsense that they put out there to distract us. So I just saw this in the Atlantic. Trump is already undermining the next election and the one after that and the one after that. So he already said on the campaign trail, I don't know if y'all remember, he said, "Okay, Christians, all you have to do is vote one more time and then it's fixed. And you'll never have to vote again." So, I mean, he's already had it in the bag, and then now he's got SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, that's going to uphold anything he says.
Yep. It's been culminating for a long time, and a lot of the pieces are moving into place, and we can choose at any moment to say that we're not going to do this anymore, but it's going to be a choice to be really, really, like, really uncomfortable, and it's really scary, and people are going to have to be willing to do that and be scared and risk harm. I don't think that any of us is getting away without any harm coming to us this time. And people need to get and reckon with that and recognize that, like, the burden of fixing this, the burden of creating this lies in one spot. And until that piece heals, the rest of us cannot heal. Like, it's not going to get done. And I know we talk about this ad nauseum. Like, the SAVE Act is essentially, like you were saying, like, it's going to impact white women who have historically voted against their own interests. It's going to massively impact now their ability to vote at all. Not even just voting against their own interests, but not voting at all, which frankly is much scarier. I won't sit here and say that you can vote your way out of fascism, because you can't. Voting is one tool. And if the less tools we have in our tool chest, the harder it is going to be to dismantle. But I'll let you kind of do a brief, if you want to do a brief overview or give your 2 cents on that.
Well, I wanted to get your thoughts on this here. So it says, what is the SAVE Act and why are married women concerned? Here's what to know. So I'll post the link on here, but I wanted to get your thoughts on this.
So essentially what this is boiling down to is, if your name on your birth certificate doesn't match your current ID, you are going to have a much harder time being able to register to vote. And you have to have proof of citizenship, I believe, in order to vote. And a lot of these documents are difficult for folks to get.
The SAVE Act would require that anyone registering to vote or changing registration appear in person.
Oh, and they have to go in person, as well, which is going to obviously affect
with original or certified documents.
Folks who are disabled are really going to be even more impacted. This is obviously going to disenfranchise even more the Black community, the Hispanic communities, the folks who are already struggling to vote. It's only going to make it that much harder in these gerrymandered and voter suppressed states like North Carolina, the state I live in. And married women who have changed their name after getting married, or people who've changed their name for any reason, are going to struggle to be able to register to vote. I think what I read in here is that it's not necessarily going to affect people who are currently registered unless they have to change their registration for any reason. I assume maybe if you move, change your address, or your name does change. At this point, I can't imagine why anyone would be trying to change their name. But that's just a personal, that's definitely personally for me. Other people who are choosing to do what they want to do for their life is fine. But at this point, it might just be best to wait a minute. Just wait a minute, because what we don't want to do is do something that will affect our ability to make change or have our voices heard in the future for the sake of following a tradition. That notion really, really terrifies me for a lot of people that I know. And I'm sure that there's, I mean, if you even think about the adopted community and what effect that might have on individuals if they decide that all of a sudden the birth certificate with the updated names on it or information on it is no longer valid. They have to go with the original, and it makes everything so muddy, slippery slope. It's just another type of voter suppression. They're trying to, instead of taking away the rights that were granted during the 19th Amendment, they're going to make it virtually impossible to exercise them instead. So they don't have to take the right away with another amendment or say that they're taking away the right for women to vote. And here we are.
And speaking of lawless government, the U.S. judge ruled that Mahmoud Khalil can be deported for his views. So can you explain a little bit of that back and forth? Because I kind of lost track because I was trying to keep up with it, and I lost track with the back and forth, and I think they did that by design as well. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I have the Guardian's article pulled up, but do you have a article?
Yeah, I'm pulling up AP News.
Okay, yeah. So basically, Trump's regime just said we're not gonna do what the judge said. We're gonna leave him there.
Okay, so it says today that originally there was a federal judge that tried to stop the deportation. He was deported, and then they were, I guess, we're holding him, and then we're waiting on another hearing to see if he was going to be able to be released or be deported, or what the case was. Apparently, according to the reporting as of 6:30 Eastern today, so an hour and a half ago-ish, Columbia University graduate student Mahmoud Khalil can be kicked out of the U.S. as a national security risk, an immigration judge in Louisiana found on Friday during a hearing over the legality of deporting the activists who participated in pro-Palestinian demonstrations. The government's contention that Khalil's presence in the U.S. posed potentially serious foreign policy consequences was enough to satisfy requirements for his deportation. Immigration Judge Jamie E. Comins, or I'm going to say Comins, said at the conclusion of a hearing in Jena, Louisiana. The government, they said, had established by clear and convincing evidence that he is removable. The judge gave them until April 23rd to seek a waiver, meaning if by April 23rd they are not able to achieve a waiver, then this activist from Columbia University, who was just standing up against a genocide, will be deported from the United States. I didn't know that development had happened before we got on the call. Obviously, some of these reports hadn't come out even before you and I had started talking this evening. So sorry.
Yeah. No. That's why I was like, I thought you could update us on it, because
so
I got
yeah. So on that side of things, it looks like we have an immigration judge. They found an immigration judge that was going to rule in the government's favor. The thing that's really sent me into such frustration, especially even before Trump came into office, is because it became so glaringly obvious, especially when it came to anything to do with Israel, where this country was going to stand, no matter what. And that is not a Trump administration specific thing, sadly. And we created the precedent for this was set during Joe Biden's presidency. And not that they haven't been arresting activists for years and years in this country, but pro-Palestinian, specifically over this most recent chapter of the tragedy that is the occupation of Palestine, and the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. This immigration judge is violating the First Amendment of the Constitution kind of blatantly, along with the President of the United States. People talk about the constitutional crisis, and are we going to see one? It's too late for that. And I think if you're not paying attention to that, then you're not seeing it very clearly.
We're already in it. We're already in it because like today they said, we don't care. We're not going to follow the law. We're not going to follow whatever the judge said. We're not going to follow the rules. They blatantly, that's like a article headline. We're not going to do what you tell us to do. That even if we're breaking the law, so be it. And I'm just like, they have all the right to do that because for some reason no one is holding them accountable.
Right.
I'll never understand why he could not be held accountable. Merrick Garland, he went MIA, when he got the case. Basically, he'd come out and poke his little head out once in a while concerning other cases. But his job, the reason everybody voted Joe Biden in was because we wanted Trump and all of those insurrectionists to be held accountable. And it never happened.
No.
And he never should have been allowed on the freaking ballot again. Like, how is that even possible?
Democrats need a boogeyman. They need a boogeyman because they cannot run on who they are. They run on who they're not and have been for a really long time. And without a boogeyman, it's the same reason why Democrats ignore rural America, is because they need to be able to point at the South and see how bad it is. See how bad it is in those red states. Do you want to be like that? Vote Democrat.
And the thing about it is, if they run on who they are, I mean, they would win like independents, moderates. They would win rural people if they would like just be real. Just get up there and be real and say, okay, well, this is broken. And we've just be real with the people. Talk to them like Victor Gao talked to everybody. He was just in the open. Talk to everybody like that.
Right.
That's what I want to see. Unfortunately,
what this system does to people like that is what it did to Jamal Bowman and Cory Booker. What it's doing to Rashida Tlaib. It does not. It will spit them out. It's not designed to allow them to rise to power. We have to decide that the power lies with the people we want to empower. We have to decide the system will never, ever do it. And so the Democratic Party is not, it's not going to be better in the way that's going to save. Well, frankly, there's not much to save. Let's be honest. We need to rewrite the script. But the Democrats weren't going to save us with even who they are at this time, because who the Democratic Party has chosen to rise through the ranks are basically the Republicans of old. Like Republicans from the 90s are running the Democratic Party essentially. And so the party itself has been handed, it's decided to be conservative. And so, be who you are. I guess they've never empowered the folks who want to be more progressive, so they are being who they are. That's my argument here, is that they are being who they are. We're seeing exactly who they are, and the ones who are being real and speaking up and speaking out and refusing to take the money from the folks who are paying everyone to stay real quiet and kind of on the same team. they get
APAC gets them out.
they get
They
spit out.
gets them out of there.
And then they
And
brag
then,
about it. You know what I mean? So like
yeah.
it's very, very obvious what's happening here. And it is,
And I'm sick of it. I'm sick and tired of it. And to everybody out there, there is a blueprint. There is the civil rights movement from the 60s. That's a map, what do you call it? A map.
yeah.
And then we have a more recent example besides well, we can't say that. The Koreans, they did not let that man overthrow and become a dictator in their country.
Think about Bangladesh.
Germany. I think I saw a video of Germans even. Turkey.
Germany's struggling at the moment. I don't think I'm going to put Germany on the list.
Turkey had like a little Pokemon running away from the police. I think it was Pikachu. Oh. Pikachu. Turkey. They're like protesting and stuff. I'll try to find that video. This was a few weeks ago, but they have protested and their little Pikachu was running away from the
right. I think the big issue, the same reason why it's hard to hold the United States is the same reason why it's hard to make massive change, is because it is so massive. It is so culturally diverse. It is so language diverse. It is so big. It is hard to change. You got to think, okay, well, Germany, France, if you add all those countries together, they're still not the size of the United States in a lot of ways. And so it's not that land votes, right? But physical barriers are still barriers to progress. And I think that the United States should never have expanded as large as it was if it wasn't ready to tackle the challenges that were going to come to that, or at least be honest about the challenges that were going to come with that. Was it ever sustainable to have a government set up on the East Coast that was telling people in Hawaii what to do? Like, no, this is US, this is empire collapse. Right. So we can't go back to what we had. What we had is no longer working. It's detonating, it's self-destructing. And so, like you said, it's looking at the blueprint for another way to do things. I think that the way that the Black Panthers were explained to the people in this country is a tragedy. Because what they actually did was what needs to happen here. And that's why.
And that was all by design.
That's why their leaders were destroyed. They actually did. It's why we have such heavy sanctions on places like Cuba and other places that start investing in their people a little bit more and wanting to change the way that things are done and nationalize their own minerals and resources and all that other stuff. Is they crush it every single time. But like, if white people decided, Indigenous people and Black people have a blueprint, we just have to stop centering ourselves in the conversation to make sure that we actually all make it through. We have to take ourselves out of the driver's seat. We're not good at driving. We're curbing it all the time. We're curbing it. We're wrapping it around a tree and then wondering why no one wants us to drive the group trip. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and all this is proving is that, with the attacks on DEI and woke, with the removal of all that, that's showing the mediocrity of the white man in charge. It is you go anti-woke, you go broke, because the country is going broke. We are crashing and burning because of that thing in the White House.
I just wonder, like, imagine, I know that I'm not the only one and this isn't an original thought, but I've sat back and wondered, like, what could it have been if the settlers who'd showed up here had just chosen to assimilate? If they had just done what they are demanding of literally everyone else on earth, even in their own country, they want them to act like us. But imagine if they had just chosen,
left everybody alone,
where we would be. I think that we would have I think the world would be a much better place.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
we'll never know for sure. But I think know that advanced technology wise, we would be like, we'll never know for the technology piece, right? But I think technologically we would be far and away ahead of where we are now, because how many millions of brilliant minds did they stifle and murder?
Yeah.
That could have shaped and carved out even more than the brilliant minds that still grew through the cracks in the sidewalk. You know what I mean? The flowers that grew through the cracks in the sidewalk. That's how I feel about the Black women that helped put us into space. There's so many stories of, if you think about the inventions and you go back and you actually look at all the things that Black people created, that indigenous people created. I mean, we wouldn't have won World War II in nearly the same way without the code talkers. Like the way that we could just be killing it right now. It stresses me out, like we could be killing it. And that's why people are like, oh, you're a liberal. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm no, because I don't want to preserve capitalism. I want to drop kick it into the atmosphere and never hear from it again. I want land back. That's what I want.
For now, we get to look at like this fantastic. Look at this. This is amazing.
Is that the one? Is that the billboard you were telling me about? Oh my gosh,
that's one of them. Yeah. That is just awesome. Like I turned the music down because of the copyright, possible copyright. But yeah, so like that is just amazing. And then like the for the New Year, Lunar New Year, that's like a 5D billboard. That's what they call a 5D billboard. But look,
so
I mean,
scary.
just the thought. I mean, look at that.
It's like uncanny. Yeah. Ah! That's so stressful.
And then they had like one with little pandas and yeah.
We can't fix a pothole, and we can't fix a pothole. That's so cool.
Look at that! Could you imagine?
See, this is one of those things where it's like
amazing.
What would you show to like a medieval peasant to like give them a heart attack? That. That.
Wow. I mean, that just could you really cool. Seeing it up close, I could not imagine. I couldn't imagine. It's amazing what happens when you. So on that, we're right, like, and it's more than enough. Just like the Victor Gal said, there's more than enough for everybody. And another thing that China does is they don't allow corporations and the billionaires to have any kind of input in the politics. And then over here, we've got the corporations and the billionaires hoarding resources and money and not putting it back into society. So that's why China right now has the infrastructure and everything that they have, because over there they cap that. They cap it. You know? Right. So that's why they have nice things. I mean, they're not perfect. Again, I'm not praising the government, but still, they have nice things because they cap the corruption.
So it reminds me of that story that out of Vietnam, where they sentenced that billionaire to death for financial fraud. She was found guilty of embezzling.
Oh, the lady.
Over $12 billion.
It was a lady.
And she was sentenced to death for doing it because
flip that around. Show it to us. Yeah, I remember that. China did that too for a couple of their billionaires. They tried to get too big for their britches, and China was like, "Oh no."
Right.
That's why that what's his name is I think he was out in exile. The Alibaba guy in China. He's like a billionaire. I think he was exiled for a while.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the one in China. This is the only one that I heard about, and it reminded me of that. But yeah, There's a death sentence that she got unless she pays $9 billion before her execution. They were like, you could buy your life back. You could buy your life back.
Yeah, that's it.
And
yeah, I remember
because if
that.
you think about, like, the thing is that Vietnam recognized something that we refuse to recognize in the United States, is that it is violent. It is inherently violent what these billionaires are doing with their money, how they're choosing to defraud the people that are earning them all of that money. It's people die every single day because of it. And so, in all fairness, it gives me great hope to see that some folks are at least willing to start calling this what it is and start treating it like the very serious thing that it is. And I genuinely hope and pray that the United States starts to take notes and get humble and realize that they're just a little kid at the table and they're not ready to run this show, and they overstuck the mark, and it's time to take a seat at the kiddie table and maybe learn a thing or two before we decide we want to dip our toe into, like, the leadership role.
The big league.
You know what I mean? We're not
league.
ready, and it's time to take a seat and learn.
Not with this regime anyway. I mean, at least there was some semblance of adults at the table with past, regardless of how you feel about them, because there's different feelings I have about them all too.
Right.
But at least in their case,
Right.
to be fair to them, I could go to sleep at night and not wake up in the morning just like
I'm not
dreading.
Right. I'm not worried that China is going to start a nuclear war.
Right.
You know, never been worried about that, actually.
Or even in our administration, like I said, before this regime,
Right.
regardless, like I didn't like Bush, of course I couldn't vote. I was old enough to vote for him. I didn't like Reagan. I couldn't vote for him either. And Obama, Clinton, all of them. I never prayed. My only favorite president is Carter. So he's the only one that I liked.
That's fair.
But I wanted to share this on closing. This is so funny. This is my little response to this post here. It says, then she threw a stack of mahjong cards in Trump's face. This ain't poker, B. And then I found this little gif here of a little penguin. And it's a little
That's a mahjong penguin. That's awesome.
mahjong penguin.
It's adorable.
But I was like, I thought it was extra funny because it's a penguin. Because he put sanctions on the penguins over there at the McDonald's house.
Like Caesar? I don't. Underlying message, underlying
no
message.
humans. But yeah, this is so funny though. The cute little penguin. And on that, we will close out. Don't forget to thumbs up the video, like, share, comment, leave us a voicemail, become a member so you can join us on the panel and we can all laugh, ha and kiki, and talk about each other's weeks and, get things off our chests. And any last words, Rosalie?
Definitely make sure that you go over and check out the VIP membership. We'd love to get some really great conversations going on this. And the more financial support that we can get for this, the more likely we are to be able to pour a little bit more time, energy, resources into, like, expanding the content, making sure that we're bringing you guys the conversations that you kind of want or need to hear. And just kind of keep supporting. I think that we're doing something pretty cool here, and I'd like to keep doing it. So let's get it done.
And we could get a team. We could pay a team to help us out with these little glitches that we're having. So apologies for the glitches.
No worries. No worries. Yeah.
And we'll see you on the next one. Join us on the next one. Thank you.
Thanks.